Yeah, I just spoke to my loan servicer and they said I should consolidate my student loans.
So this is from a recent phone call I had with a FitBucks member, and it's something that I hear all the time. Loan servicers love pushing this idea of consolidation, but here's the problem. People think that it lowers their payments or saves them money or even reduces the interest rate. That's all a myth. And if you consolidate for the wrong reasons, you can actually end up costing yourself thousands and thousands of dollars. In this video, I'm breaking down the biggest misconceptions about student loan consolidation, and I'm also going to go through scenarios where it's a massive mistake to do it, but also a couple scenarios where you would want to think about doing it. With that being said, let's jump into it. Most people believe that student loan consolidation does three things. First, that it saves them money. Second, that it lowers their monthly payment. And third, it reduces your interest rate. The reality is all three of those are false. Consolidation only does one thing. It merges multiple federal student loans into one loan. That's it. It doesn't change your interest rate, it doesn't automatically lower your payment, and it doesn't save you any money. So why do so many people think that it does these things? It's because when people consolidate, they oftentimes combine it with another action. Now, when we go through the scenarios, I'll be discussing one of those other actions later on in this video. But for now, I want to focus on consolidation by itself because the wrong move can cost you thousands and thousands of dollars. But before we go any further, I want you to get something very, very clear. When it comes to your federal student loans, you have two financial planning choices. Either you're going to pay them off or you're going to go for loan forgiveness. So keep that in the back of your mind because we're going to dive into some scenarios to illustrate when you shouldn't consolidate and a couple of when you should consolidate. If you're staying in your federal loans and your goal is to pay them off, you don't want to consolidate. And here's why. When you consolidate, all your loans become one big loan at the weighted average interest rate of your loans. This kills your ability to target high interest rate loans first, meaning you're going to end up paying more in interest over time. Let me explain with an example. Let's just say you have three loans, one for $10,000 at 7%, one at $20,000 at 6%, and then $30,000 loan at 4%. Now, if you consolidate, you're locked into one big blended rate. But if you keep them separate, you can pay off the highest interest rate loan first by making prepayments specifically to that loan, saving you thousands and thousands of dollars in interest. Once you consolidate your federal loans, you can no longer target the higher interest rate loan because you just have one big, gigantic loan. The bottom line is, if you plan to pay off your loans aggressively, do not consolidate if you're staying in your federal loans. Now, that last part, staying in your federal loans, that's very important because I'm going to touch on that in scenario number 4. But before I get to that, let's go through scenario 2 and scenario 3. Now, earlier I said there's two different repayment strategies when it comes to student loans and financial planning. One is paying off your loans, the other one is loan forgiveness. So if your goal is loan forgiveness, consolidation may be actually a very critical decision for you. Because if you do it wrong, it can literally cost you years of progress towards forgiveness. For example, let's just say you're 15 years into repayment and you're considering a new plan that came out. You would not want to consolidate. The reason being, consolidation resets your forgiveness clock back to 0 for the new loan. So instead of being like 10 years away from forgiveness, you would now be 20 or 25 years away for forgiveness. So long story short, if you're far along in repayment, do not consolidate your loans unless you know exactly how it impacts your timeline for forgiveness. Hey guys, real quick, if you're still watching this video, it's because you're getting value from it. We enjoy making these videos, and when you subscribe to the channel, it helps us grow, which allows us to keep making more and more videos. So if you get a chance, please hit the subscribe button. With that being said, let's jump back into the video. Now, there are some situations where consolidating makes sense. For example, you might be a new grad with no payment history, but you need to enroll in an income driven repayment plan, but your current loans don't actually qualify. So, because of that, you may need to consolidate into a new direct consolidation loan. Now, unlike scenario two, where you had repayment history, you're a new grad, you have no repayment history. So, if you need to go on the income driven repayment plan, one, because that's all you can afford, or B, because you're qualifying for public service loan forgiveness, then it might be the right move to consolidate. Now, there's only one situation where consolidating your loans makes sense if you're paying them off, and that's if you decide to refinance. Refinancing is different than consolidating. And earlier I mentioned sometimes people get confused and say, I consolidated and got a lower interest rate. And I said, that's not the case. What ends up happening is that the person refinances and consolidates at the same time. So they take multiple loans, merge them into one big loan, and then they get a lower interest rate. Two things at one time. So the big question becomes, should you refinance? Therefore, the next thing you should do is